Thank you for joining me on such an essential conversation that is going to help us as individuals maximize the quality of our life, the quality of our work at the minimum. And that is having the conversation and getting an understanding of getting comfortable being outside of your comfort zone. Getting comfortable being outside of your comfort zone. And I think that's a conversation we need to have and at least find out if this type of conversation is necessary. But if you feel it's important to step outside of your comfort zone when necessary, feel free, if you have a workbook, to put in the workbook why it's important to be okay with and comfortable with stepping outside of your comfort zone. Put that in there. If you don't have a workbook and you are checking this out on another platform, go ahead and put in the comments or in the comment area why it's important to be okay, if at all, with stepping outside of your comfort zone. We really want to jump into that and see if your comfort zone is possibly an asset and or a liability. You know, we want to see what that looks like and have that conversation and really see if you can maximize, your visions, your goals, those that you set for yourself in your personal life and your career, even with your team maybe. So we're going to talk about ultimately, does success really happen when you step outside of your comfort zone? And my oldest son gave me his definition of success when he was younger, and that is pursuing the goals and the vision you have set for yourself. And so I take that as something that it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to reach that goal that makes you successful, but pursuing and going after the goals that you have set for yourself and what you envision for yourself, that's success. So does it sound like to be successful, you're going to have to pursue, first of all, your goals that you've set for yourself? Possibly. And does that require in the process you possibly getting uncomfortable and being in some uncomfortable situations? Possibly. So this is why I think this is a great conversation to have. And ultimately, we're going to be focusing on and discussing teaching your brain what your heart already knows. We're going to be teaching ourselves in so many words, and we're going to get into that conversation. But teaching your brain, let's say how it's designed here, teaching your brain what your heart already knows. We're going to see what that looks like. So before we get started into this presentation, I have a cool video I want us to check out, especially when it comes to or related to your comfort zone. And we're going to check this out. Leave your thoughts in the description or in the comments or in your workbook as far as what you took out of this fun short video. Let's check it out.
Sorry, Egwene. Would you stop doing that? How was your first day teaching? Humiliating. I heard. Who told you? Did Tigers tell you? I heard from Monkey and Crane and Mantis and your dad and Mrs. Chow from the gift shop and those ducks you just passed and Tigers told me. Yeah, well, did she also tell you that it'll never happen again? Because I'm done. Teaching or being humiliated? Both. I don't know why you ever thought I could teach that class. Oh, I knew you couldn't. What? You set me up to fail? Why? If you only do what you can do, you will never be more than you are now. I don't want to be more. I like who I am. You don't even know who you are. What do you... Of course I do. I'm the Dragon Warrior. And what exactly does that mean, Dragon Warrior? Mastering Chi requires mastery of self. Oogway sat alone in a cave for 30 years, asking one question. Who am I? Who am I? So now I have to sit alone in a cave for 30 years? Eventually, after you master teaching. Teaching? There's no way I'm ever going to be like you. I'm not trying to turn you into me. I'm trying to turn you into you.
So that was a fun video to watch and to get us started. And I would love for you to put your thoughts or leave your thoughts or of what you felt that message was to you when it came to getting comfortable, stepping outside of your comfort zone, in the sense of the conversation between the student and the teacher. Leave your thoughts. What did you feel? If you have any examples of what your feedback is, any examples of your feedback, go ahead and put that in the comments as well, or in the workbook, so we can all learn and grow. And so ultimately, when it came to stepping outside your comfort zone, the master or the teacher knew that the student would have a hard time going through the process, and that the teacher knew that having a hard time going through the process is a part of the growth process. Excuse me, y'all, something's in my eye. The part of the growth process. Excuse me again. And so, from the perspective of the teacher was not as stressful, I'll use that word, or as caring, if you will, or animated with the student as much as the student was with himself, by first feeling like the student didn't know the student felt like he didn't know what he was doing as a teacher, and the student was recognizing that the feedback coming from the students that the student was teaching. So student one being the student of the master, student two being the student of student one, if you will. And so student one was so focused on what students two felt, that they've ended up accepting that, hey, student one ended up accepting that hey, this was a disaster. I don't know what I'm doing. And one, what did everybody say? Did you hear something from this person? Because your peers, your neighbors, we all care about those things. So any type of challenges or negativity we're going to get, we're going to take that as possibly, if we claim to know something, especially, as humiliation. And humiliation is basically caring, if you will, what other people think, if you will. Correct me if I'm wrong, leave that in the comments. But ultimately, that humiliation of caring so much can be so real that, like in the video, the student one was ready to quit. And student one didn't like that uncomfortability of not knowing what you're doing, and basically getting ostracized and scrutinized, if you will, and insulted for your lack of intelligence, if you will, by the neighboring people. And that can allow you to quit. And that's why that's an uncomfortable situation. Here is student A, who is to some degree a pretty good martial artist, if you will. The students started off not being good and really grew into the first phases of being a great martial artist and leader of the community. But now the teacher was teaching student one a newer form of combat, which is really finding yourself, finding out who you are. And one of the ways that you can do that is through teaching, but also going through uncomfortable situations that will help you in so many ways that we're going to talk about during this presentation. And I do want to shout out that the teacher told the student one, that, hey, I knew that these things were going to happen to you. The humiliation, the quitting, what you feel. And the student one said, well, you knew that this was what happened to me, and so therefore you set me up for failure. That's what was the mindset of student one. You're setting me up for failure, knowing I wouldn't do a good job. And the teacher said, if you can only do what you can do, you'll never be more than you are. If you can only do what you can do, if you can only do what you can do, you'll never be more than you are. I'm going to read that one more time. If you only do what you can do, you'll never be more than you are. And that makes me think of, you don't know what you can do, because the environment and the circumstances have not put you in a position to see if there's something else that needs to be done. And we really, as human beings, don't want to see if there's more that needs to be done because that's going to be uncomfortable in more than one way. And so when we think that we're at a level where we are at a mastery, we'll soon find out there's another level. And we will have an idea that that is uncomfortable, even if we have been successful in some things and grew. And now we got to find out it's a deeper layer to this, if that makes sense. And so going through uncomfortable situations is going to help sculpt who you are and find out who you are, not only from the internal sense, but from a sense that will allow you to actually do physically, to actually go after the goals that you've set for yourself, and knowing that, hey, this is an uncomfortable situation, but I'm comfortable in the situation. An uncomfortable situation is different than an uncomfortable situation and being uncomfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Because you could be in an uncomfortable situation and still have some form of comfort. And you might say, well, how is that possible? We're going to break that down because there's certain tools that you want to keep in mind. And so leave your thoughts in the comments. What, am I off on this? What did I miss? If you have anything that you can elaborate on from what I said, it's just ultimately getting comfortable stepping outside your comfort zone is just basically being aware that you're going to go through things that you have not really experienced, and humiliation and quitting are easier things to recognize, but knowing that these uncomfortable situations are the foundation of your growth, as if you know the movie, is so essential. All right, so let's jump into this presentation and what we're going to be taking away from our studies, if you will. One of the bigger things we're going to take away, we're all the equal amount. They're all the equal amount, but one big thing you're going to take away is being aware of the idea and aware of the benefits of knowledge. Now, there could be some opposites of benefits. There could be some cons to knowledge, but we're going to talk about the benefits of knowledge and how knowledge is really based on your experience, going into wisdom, going into ultimately just knowing based upon experience, which is the foundation. So we're going to talk about experience and how that helps you with your self-confidence through courage. We're also going to talk about what we discuss, we're actually practicing and taking from our hearts, utilizing it in our minds, and making sure that our body is able to get the job done for us. We're going to talk about that process when it comes to, which is the heart, mind, and body, when it comes to being comfortable stepping outside your comfort zone. Also going to discuss that every challenge and negative circumstance is not designed for you to be so dreadful that is causing dis-ease and physiological challenges. Because like we just discussed in the video, this character, the student one, ends up becoming like this masterful individual, both within and without, on a deeper level. But these are, if you're familiar with the video series, the movie series, these are the moments, as you can see, that were challenging and new, and as we can see, uncomfortable for student one to go through, to the point of focusing on humiliation and even discussing quitting. And so we're going to just make sure that we're aware that these circumstances and challenges are not designed to be a stress producer, but a freedom and mastery liberator, if you will. We're also going to focus on not other people through humiliation, but focus on congratulating and celebrating and impressing yourself first. Because, like I say, naked and alone you come in, naked and alone you're going to leave. There's so much support system out there for us, but we're the ones that have to walk. You are the one that has to walk. Not your sibling, not your parents, not your children, not your neighbor, not your elected official, whatever that looks like. You're the one that has to walk your path that you were given consciousness of, if you will, and you being your biggest supporter, being the most patient person with yourself, loving yourself, impressing yourself, building with yourself is going to be something vital for you to make sure that you are comfortable stepping outside of your comfort zone. And in that whole process, you're going to learn and focus on relaxing, enjoying the moments, building and pondering on great memories. It's a beautiful thing. So this presentation is definitely for anyone that is starting a business or just an entrepreneur, because that takes creativity. And creativity is so fluid and diverse that you never really know where it's going to take you, which is, if you think about it, a uncomfortable situation in itself. And so your journey may put you in a position where you are uncomfortable, especially for business. You got to be able to know how to get through that. So entrepreneur is great for if you're someone seeking employment and you're looking to do something different to stand out, whatever that looks like, or you know that you're not putting yourself in the proper positions for that promotion or opportunity when it comes to employment. This will be a great, or even career training. You're looking to pursue and move on in your career. How you're an intern and you're now competing against other individuals with experience, and it's uncomfortable. And how do you go through that? Anyone looking to build relationships, manage relationships, which should be all of us as a human being, that for whatever reason, when it comes to dealing with people, being comfortable outside of your comfort zone is essential. So if you're someone looking to build relationships, to include young adults, how do you build relationships, management relationships, avoid relationships to ensure that you're properly developing and getting to the goals that you've set for yourself? And if you're someone that is quiet behind the scene, you might be productive, but you're just someone behind the scene, and you know that you have to get out there more, make your presence felt a little more to get to where you want to be, and you're considered an introvert, this is a great presentation for you as well. And it's important to know, just keep in mind, that failure does not exist other than not doing. I think of the word trying because trying is giving an effort, but in its root, trying or giving an effort is still doing. So if you're not giving an effort, or if you're not doing whatever that looks like, then you are failing because you're not putting anything in motion, if that makes sense. You have to be the one to help move that forward, and we'll talk about that soon. So doing, which some may call trying, but doing creates education. You're becoming more aware. You're getting more experience. You're learning through that experience and being through uncomfortable situations and having to learn how to fight through that. You're learning the art and the skill and the knowing of perseverance. And through all those things and going through those challenges, you'll be able to learn, embrace, and share your story to inspire others to do greater things. And over time, with these consistent actions, you'll realize that not doing or failure is nothing more than an illusion. Why would you not want to do for yourself? It's an illusion, and that the foundation of success is doing. We're going to learn that through this presentation. How exciting. Okay, so let's talk about Donovan Hilton for a second. Fun fact, a husband and a father. A husband for over 10 years, and my wife and I have 3 beautiful boys. Our oldest, and actually of the 3 boys, 2 are twins. And so when we talk about being a husband and those growing processes, which could be seen as uncomfortable situations, as well as being a father, those could be seen as, just from that perspective of family and personal, how do you maintain your comfortability being outside your comfort zone, just in those things alone. I also have experience in going through the process of running a sales and marketing consulting firm that's designed to increase my clients' customer base and community presence in urban areas through business development and community engagement outsourcing. In that process of going from an idea to self-employment and to scaling a business, there were definitely and are definitely some uncomfortable situations. So again, how do you ensure that you are being comfortable just stepping outside your comfort zone and being in uncomfortable situations. Through the growth of a consulting firm, I have expanded my skill sets and trades into starting an uh, advisory service and an advisory firm in which these same clients may not want the actual outsourcing for marketing, but they need insight, access, and resources, a conversation, a trusted partner, if you will. So I provide an advisory service for clients that are ultimately, again, looking to develop their brand or build their presence and buy-in, and what that looks like more from an intellectual and training perspective. So that was definitely an uncomfortable position that I'm continuing to learn and grow in. And for those that may not know, I'm also what one may consider a statesman. I ran for office for a metropolitan city, did not win, had, there's a whole story to that, so feel free to click in the links. The story of my civic journey from candidate to statesman, and just how I've been able to work every, various aisles, parties, and neighborhoods and perspectives to really deliver unity, transparency, and the foundation to build at least a working relationship among citizens and leaders. That is something that I've been doing for over 10 years now, regarding running for office, serving as an elected official, stepping away from the elected official aspect and just building relationships for the urban communities that I serve, to work with elected officials and vice versa, to include government agency leaders as well. And a fun fact, I am a registered Lord of Glencoe in the country of Scotland, courtesy of Highland Titles. And my wife surprised me with this registration, as she's a registered Lady of Glencoe in Scotland, courtesy of Highland Titles, simply because we're expanding our consulting work. And as much as we want to reach the urban areas of the U.S., we also want to reach the urban areas of the United Kingdom, as well as African diaspora countries, and connecting those major continents, if you will, and building and maintaining a work relationship at the minimum, a lot more, but actually getting your lordship title and actually walking around and putting on your promotion material, Lord Donovan Hilton. That was very uncomfortable for me at the beginning, because I wanted to do it and I wanted to stimulate my mind, and it was a great way to stimulate minds when people saw that title. But being comfortable walking in that, especially when you're not in the United Kingdom, and people really liking it, but also thinking it's delusional and going through that whole process, to the point now where I promise you, there's places that I go and they're like, Lord Hilton, Lord Donovan, my Lord. People are doing it and they're buying into it or just joking about it, but it's thrown out there. And so I had to step outside of my comfort zone, even providing my lordship title. One of my good friends and associates came to me and said, Donovan, at the end of the day, that's what you focused on. That's what interested you. That's what you want to promote. So forget what everybody else says and do what you do. You have your supporters, your network, and what you're doing, and that's all that matters. And that was a huge help for me, because again, I was looking at one point the humiliation and maybe quitting, and it was my support system that said, Donovan, you're great. Donovan, you're this is why we rock with you, if you will. Stimulate, do what you do so that we can, move forward. And so that helped. And I also received feedback from some of my family and friends, because, the Lord title can be seen as faith-based as well. And so I created a 5-minute explainer video about my lordship title and what that meant, and how that is totally separate and nothing to do with faith-based in any way. But those are things that I had to learn and go through for me to just be comfortable stepping outside my comfort zone. And I'm now walking a whole lot stronger, in that mindset. So we all go through this process, and that's why I think it's important for all of us to talk about it. So, making the unknown known. How does this system work? And I say unknown known because what makes us uncomfortable a lot of times is because we don't know. And knowing is a huge part of our survival mindset and mechanism. The more we know, according to our brain, the more we can calculate our process and assess any risk to ensure that we can preserve our life. not just our physical life, but our spiritual, mental, financial. There's various aspects of life, if you will. And so the more that you know, which can be a gift or a curse, technically, it's another conversation. I'll leave your thoughts as to why that may or may not make sense, or how a gift can become a curse, or in regards to knowing. But ultimately, back to the presentation, knowing something is going to help in making that process a lot easier. So we're going to talk about how do we get there, and it's just really three parts, three things three physical things, if you will, and spiritual thing, well, physical really. Well, actually, it's a blend, if you will, from the spiritual to the physical as we look at this. And one is, when it comes to our system, it's involving our heart, which is that internal us that's pulling at us of what we should and should not be doing. And if you don't really know what that is, you have to listen to yourself and follow your gut, or what they say, trust your instincts, or have discernment of you actually being a part of. When I say you, your awareness, being a part of the decision-making process, either giving orders or receiving orders. When I say you, I'm coming from a source of the heart. And what I mean by heart is your heart is the operator of your next stages. And so when we say operator, that's the one that's really making the decisions based on what the environment, if you will, is giving to you as opportunities. So you're making decisions based on the survival mechanisms and the survival ideas of the opportunities that the environment is giving you. Because if the environment doesn't really require you to move, then guess what? You won't really move like that. But if the environment requires you to move in any particular way for the sake of survival at the minimum, your heart is going to put some things in motion. And what end up being put in motion is your mind and your body. So your heart is your operator, and ultimately the mind can be seen as the operating system or the software, if you will. So you as the heart, you as the awareness are operating the software to begin that process. And so your heart has your heart's opportunity has been placed in your mind, so your body can achieve or pursue that opportunity. So what I mean by that is there's certain visions, certain goals that maybe you consciously or unconsciously receive as far as what you should be doing or what you shouldn't be doing or whatever that looks like. So you have to be able to process, first be aware and process that, and then from your heart, which is you as the individual controlling everything, put in your mind what is the proper way to move forward. And that's the process of something. That's you saying, I need to do more of something, I need to take away or do less of something, I need to divide something, or I need to multiply doing something, if that makes sense. Because in the process, traditionally, you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And when you're dealing with the process, traditionally, in order for that process to take effect, there has to be an input, something at the beginning that's going to require some movement. So, and from that movement produces a result or an output. So it's kind of like an assembly line where something goes on to the belt, if you will. It gets put on the belt and it's going through, and then there's a big machine and it goes in the machine and something's happening, and then it comes out the machine, a whole different situation. And it just keeps doing that. That's called a system. You input, which is put the item on the belt goes through, the belt, as it's on the belt, the machine does what it does, or you do what it does as a human being, and then it's packaged up, ready to go and sent on its way. And so you are the individuals that are initially putting the item on the belt. And the mind is the one that's going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide that item, and then there's going to be a production, if you will. So jumping into that in more detail, and we'll say this, your heart is feeling something or seeing something. You are feeling something as the operator, or seeing something that traditionally is not, that you don't see. So for that reason, that could be considered unknown, because you don't see it, but you do see it within yourself or within the situation. And so Excuse me, y'all. And so keeping that in mind, that could be a scary thing. You don't really see it, but you physically, but you know it's there because it keeps pulling on your heart, your mind, your heart, or on you. You're feeling it. And so even though it's not there, but it's pulling towards you that goal, that vision, or whatever you have you, that's what you call faith. Knowing that it's there if there's something that could be done to make it happen. And that something is your mind first conceiving and accepting and telling your body to move forward. And your mind is the work aspect. So your faith is knowing that this thing exists with a little bit of work. And the work really comes from your mindset. Because if your mindset and your mind says, hey, I'm going to do this, guess what? The body, which is the output, is going to try its best to make sure that it's done, regardless, because the mind is controlling. The body doesn't do anything if the mind is not telling it to do anything. And the mind has a mind of, you could say the mind has a mind of its own, but at the same time, and that's the default, worst case, that's the default, the mind having a mind of its own, or the computer having a mind of its own, because the brain, if you, the mind is encompassed in the idea of the brain. The brain is a physical thing, but the mind could be maybe seen as a chip or a software within the brain. And we have to understand that a brain is a biological processor, is what they call it, a biological processor. We know a processor is a computer type instrument, and biological being a living organism that's able to reason, if you will. So you have a living organism able to reason through a computer system, and that's pretty much where the mind is. It's basically a computer system that can run itself and at the form of survival mindset, or it could be ran by you as the operator, the heart, the faith, as a thriving mindset, because the mind's going to do what it needs to do through nature to survive. But if you want to really embrace being comfortable outside your comfort zone to get to where you have to go, you as the heart, as the input, as the faith, have to be willing to have a mindset of thriving, because your thriving mindset traditionally will over trump your survival mindset unless the situation and circumstances requires your mind to say, hey, we need to survive right now. And that's you just being in touch with yourself and in the situation. Your mind is the process to achieve or at least pursue the opportunities of the heart. The process of anything is the most challenging of your opportunity, meaning the process, having to go through adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, is the most challenging because that's the actual friction. That's the what they call it, like the diamond in the rough. I believe a coal gets turned into a diamond through heat, if you will. That all that process is uncomfortable. We saw through the video that was an uncomfortable process for student one. But we know that if we stick with it, the output through the work of the body will achieve some form of that success because you're doing. So the doing part is the mind, which is the work. We're going to talk about that shortly. And so going from the input, which is the faith, and the heart, which is you, to the process, which is the mind, which is the works, to the output, which is the body producing the creation in the physical third dimensional realm, the body has to be that vehicle to actually bring what's in your heart, process to your mind so you can see it in the reality of the situation. Your body's going to be that actual creator, if you will, or creating creation tool to actually create and manifest what's in your mind, what's inside of your heart at the end of the day. And so the goal at the end of the day is to make the unseen seen, which means that the unseen can be possible. You see it. You just have to go through the process to make it physically possible. And what was maybe unknown to others may have always been known to you, but you went through that process to make that happen, if this makes sense. So that's a lot to digest. Leave in the comments, what is your takeaway from the last few minutes that we've discussed? Do you have any examples? Do you agree or disagree? Do you have any adding information you can add or subtract? This is an opportunity for dialogue and for us to all get better on such an essential topic, which is being comfortable stepping outside of our comfort zone and every part of life usually is uncomfortable, and we put these walls up or circular protection around us for survival mechanisms. But we realize if we're looking to really pursue and reach those goals within our household, within our department of where we work, within our business, within our community service and works, we have to step outside of what we know and get into that unknown for us to build what we can see within, if that makes sense. So as we're doing that, just keep these tips in mind to become comfortable. Now, one tip to keep in mind is to know why you want to achieve something. So there has to be a foundation of a purpose or mission or goal, because that foundation of a purpose, mission, or goal is going to help you in your decision making and your behavior patterns to physically reach those goals, because it's going to be distractions both in every angle and aspect and degree. But if we're focused on our goal and we know that we have a goal, then we're going to pursue and be more aware of of reaching that goal. And not only if we have a goal, knowing why we want to reach that goal is only going to motivate, inspire, and empower us to do better. And so that's one of the first things we want to throw out as far as knowledge and knowing, but is basically accepting and being aware of why you want to achieve your goal or reach that opportunity. It's going to create that courage, because you know that at the end of the day, you've never done it before. You know that you want to do it and you feel you can do it. There's going to be some extra chemical, if you will, that's going to fluster up to really kickstart your vehicle to get over that hill. And that adrenaline pumps through, which is called courage and courageousness. And you're going to get through that moment because you know that the only result is going and doing through that process. You're not going to reach your goal and achieve your mission in any way if you are not doing. So pump that courage up and put your head down, be prepared, and go through it. There is no other way. And guess what? That's called experience. That's gaining education. That's learning perseverance. And that's creating a story that will inspire others. It's so important to be able to know what your goal is, what your purpose is, what your mission is, because it's going to help you build that courage. And you're going to have to look within yourself to find out, what do I need to do more of, less of, multiply or divide for me to really reach my goals. Second thing you want to keep in mind as far as a tip to help you become comfortable outside of knowing what you want to achieve, why you want to achieve it, is to, once you know what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it, you got to know how to reach that goal. And so you got to look at point B, or you got to look at point A, and you got to look at point B. And the goal is to get to point B. So what you can do is work from point B, start from point B and work backwards to figure out how do you get to point B. So for example, if point B is the end goal, this is what you want, you have to figure out, okay, what do I need to do between now and getting to point B? What do I actually need to do to achieve that? And these different things are going to pop up. You're going to write them down, and then each thing that pops up, you break it down. Okay, what I got to do to achieve that? And you just keep breaking it down, but you're basically studying, you're researching, and you're actually looking into the details. And what this is going to do is going to help your mind. It's exercising your mind. It's letting your mind know, oh man, this individual is serious. That we know it's in their heart that this is what's going on and this is what they want to pursue or what they can reach or attain, but they're actually putting in effort. The heart is telling me as the mind to actually put in effort to research, study, and what that does is it helps the brain, your processor, your living reasoning toolkit, if you will, to help you maneuver through the works. Is helping you to become more familiar, to become more aware, and so that you are able to move forward. By you becoming more familiar and aware only helps you in your courageous walk. When you cannot trust what you don't know. Knowing comes from experience and education. Your brain becomes more confident if it is more aware. Your brain becomes more confident if it's more aware. And the only way, the conundrum to this whole thing of it becoming more aware, is by actually doing and going through that process. And that's a scary thing. It could be perceived as a scary thing. And this is why it's important for you to know what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it, because that's going to, and let it be your family, let it be yourself, let it be your community, let it be something worth you going through that motion and going through that experience for you to reach the goal. Because if that motivation, that why is not self-empowering for you to move, then you're not going to feel comfortable moving forward. So really dig deep into why this is so important and what it is. The third thing you want to keep in mind as a tip is consistent action breeds familiarity. I've never been good with that word, familiarity. Consistent action, consistent doing breeds familiarity. And the reason why is because you're exercising your mind, you're exercising your brain, and your brain is going to, over time, pick up this action you're doing and actually make it a habit. And eventually, over time, your mind is going to tell you, "Hey, you didn't do this today. You need to do that." And now you may look at yourself and be like, "I'm intentionally procrastinating on something." Your heart may look and do research and say and realize I'm intentionally procrastinating because my mind is telling me this is what I need to do because I've already been doing this on a consistent basis, and I'm stopping. And eventually, if you keep stopping, your mind will eventually break that habit of doing and becoming familiar. It's like exercising. If you don't do it on a consistent basis, no matter how much strength you gain, if you don't keep up with it, give it a certain amount of time, and you go back and lift those same amount of weights, and it's going to be a lot more challenging. You'll be sweating a lot more, or you won't be able to lift those weights, and you got to start on a smaller weight scale. And that's because you have to consistently exercise. So consistent action will help your brain get used to that something that is now no longer a threat. Because anything new to the brain or to the mind can be seen as a threat because, again, it's about survival, less pain, as much as least the least amount of stress possible. These are all things that the mind and the brain are fighting for. And so when you're jumping into something unknown, unseen, it could be conceived as a threat because it's new. So your heart has to be so strong to be consistent, has to be so strong to tell your mind, "Hey, I need you to do this." And your mind will do it. Your body will go through the motions to make it happen. And the more you see actually manifest and become real, the more that you'll just really walk stronger and stronger into this belief system, if you will. You're going to call it that. Now, this is a fun, just quick excerpt that I found in an article that dealt with familiarity. And if we looked at number 3 as far as tips, consistent action breeds familiarity. I say here that as your brain gets used to something, that something no longer becomes a threat because it's getting used to it. Follow your heart to change your mind. As you, as the operator of your heart, pursue and move forward with that, stay true, which is stay forward with that, and your mind will eventually change because it's consistent action that breeds being familiar with something. And so going back into tip number 3, how the brain becomes more familiar with something if it's done on a consistent basis to the point where the brain no longer recognizes that consistency as a threat because it's no longer new. And so it's out of survival mindset. There's a pretty cool article and excerpt that I ran into that talks about the science of familiarity and how that helps you. And it says here, just a quick snippet here, the science behind familiarity. This is through cxl.com. The science behind familiarity. Unconsciously, we give preference to things and people we're familiar with. I'll repeat that one more time. Unconsciously, which I feel is more of a nature or natural thing. So unconsciously, we give preference to things and people we're familiar with. Psychologists have even found that the more often you see someone, the more likely you are to develop a romantic attraction to them. I'll read that second sentence again. When it comes to the science behind familiarity, psychologists have even found that the more often you see someone, the more likely you are to develop a romantic attraction to them. Out of sight, out of mind, if you will. And so it's just letting you know that we are looking to take what we naturally do, which is survive, and turn that natural into the supernatural, if you will, which is to thrive. And so we can see that a natural surviving mechanism is to gravitate toward things and preferences and people that we're familiar with, even if they are not the best situation or experience for us to reach our goals. But our brain and our mind is saying that it's familiar to us. And so, unaware that we do this, this is why we continue to remain uncomfortable in uncomfortable situations and outside of our comfort zone. So we are now knowing and aware that it's natural for us to connect with and gravitate towards circumstances, preferences, and people that we're familiar with. But we now know that in order for us to step outside that comfort zone, to reach and pursue those goals, and to be comfortable stepping outside of that comfort zone, that we have to try new things that and work with new people that we're not familiar with. And so knowing that, and knowing that even to the point of you being familiar with something develops attraction, we want to consciously make an effort to pursue what we are uncomfortable with and stepping outside that comfort zone, because that is literally the foundation and the process for you to begin to see the results that you know that you can achieve. So let's talk about some actual tips that we can use to actually go through the process of getting comfortable being outside your comfort zone. Now, again, the reason why you are stepping outside your comfort zone and the mission you are looking to pursue or complete your goals, they may all be different, but there's three particular ways that can help you with getting outside your comfort zone. One is networking. Another one is just fiddling, if you will, and doing different educational or engaging activities on a phone, because obviously it's going to allow people to look at you. When I say, I'm sorry, not a phone, yeah, over the phone, which is an actual conversation. And another way, the third way, in no particular order, is actually utilizing your camera on your phone or using a traditional camera to record and go through the process of, again, sharing and introducing yourself at the minimum. All three forms are basically going to help you connect with people. If you remember at the beginning of the video that we watched, the student number number one was dealing with individuals such as students number two, the different students that student number one was teaching, as well as student number one's peers and friends, and including neighbors that were talking about student number one. So you're dealing with people, you're dealing with other individuals. So when dealing with individuals, you're either talking with them over the phone, you're networking with them and talking with them in person, or they're watching you on some type of visual or audio device or camera, if you will, or podcast. So these are all direct and indirect ways for you to start engaging and getting comfortable with people, feedback, situations, and circumstances. And when you're networking, just some tips. You want to make sure you go in there and you start introducing yourself early. Don't wait around and get nervous and build that anxiety. Just get out there and shake a hand, introduce yourself. There might be a theme to the activity or event you're going to, but when you're going and connecting with people while you're networking, just you can ask. What great way to get started is, well, what brings you here today? There's probably a big theme that explains why they're there, but each individual has their own individual reason for attending the activity or networking. And so asking, so what brings you here today, is a great icebreaker. You want to make sure you're smiling when you're doing that, because it's going to open up the conversation. You keep in mind the individual you're talking to might be nervous or uncomfortable. This might be an uncomfortable situation for them. So by you smiling is an indirect way of just to ease tension. And when you have that great conversation, you're hitting it off. Definitely want to make sure you have your business cards ready, or they have on your digital devices a QR code that individuals can scan, and that QR code directs them to a digital business card that you may have. And you always want to make sure you have a pen and paper ready, because when you're connecting and conversing with individuals, there's going to be a reaction to your action. And you want to make sure that you're able to follow up, capture information. So having business cards or a QR code ready and having a pen and paper ready is essential to building that confidence as you courageously go out and network with people in person. These are all just different ways the brain can start getting used to, the mind can start getting used to that process of networking and getting in front of people. It might be new to you, especially if you're an introvert. Another way that you can start building that confidence, that being courageous and walking in that courageousness, if that's a word, is by getting in front of your camera. That could be on your cell phone or a professional camera, and just get in front of people, get in front of the camera, and just start talking and sharing your message and being yourself. At the end of the day, I always like to say that that experience is going to come to an end because there's only a certain amount of time in a day. And when that experience comes to an end and you look back at the situation, what you can't change or take back, you're going to look back at that situation and say, dang, I did everything I could. And this is why the footage looks great, or the experience or the memory came out great. Or, dang, I should have. Now that you look back and time is gone and the world has moved forward and that experience and that situation is in the past, you're going to look back and say, dang, I should have did this or took advantage of this opportunity or moment and receive this result. And that's the mindset you want to have. You don't want to look back in situations and say, I should have did this or I should have did that. So take advantage of those opportunities because it's going to end shortly. Now, when it comes to building that comfortability over the phone, a lot of times you want to take the focus off of you and put it on the individual, allow them to do the talking. So when you're on the phone and opening the conversation with, hey, what's the latest? Compared to saying, how are you? How are you is a question that may bring negative experience or just a negative remembering, if you will, to the individual you're talking to. And because how are you is I'm not good because this is what happened or that's what happened. But when you say, hey, what's the latest? It's a very broad question in which it could put the individual in a position to say, hey, let me think of something positive to say, or let me take away from the focus of the challenges. And what's the latest, with something that's a new horizon question. And it might be nothing. That's the latest, and they can say that, but it's just very broad and open ended. And when you're on the phone or talking in person or even on camera or a virtual call, having open-ended questions to bring out information, to relax the conversation, and to have what I call a consultant mindset is so important. Because again, you don't want to have to do all the talking and figure out what to say, especially if you're new. So asking questions, actively listening to the conversation and asking questions, open-ended questions based upon what's being discussed is so essential. And there should be, and if I hadn't created a video on how to create a long-lasting conversation through open-ended questions, I'll do that. Hopefully, if I have done that by the time you're watching this video, there's a link of a description. If not, I'll be working on that to see what that looks like to keep a conversation going. And in any type of conversation over the phone, if it's especially if it's an appointment in a scheduled situation, a scheduled conversation, you can't always ask, hey, what are you looking to get accomplished before we wrap up today with our conversation, our phone call, whatever have you. These are great things to keep in mind, and always keep things light, always keep things friendly. Again, one of the biggest takeaways we want to keep in mind is these are the processes that you have to go through, what you've learned. If nothing else, just know that everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to work out. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. You're new. You don't know. You have to go through this experience. So as best as you can, relax and enjoy yourself. It's going to work itself out. I'm telling you through experience. This is why I felt it was so important to have this presentation and allow you to listen to it. So if you felt that this information was good for you in any way, thank you for leaving that information in the comments or clicking the link to leave your review about this presentation. I wanted to keep it within an hour or close to an hour. We could have elaborated a lot longer. I thank you for putting your thoughts and your reflections and your insights into the comments. You can send me an email as well. There should be a link there for you to reach out if you have a question or you want some elaboration or you want me to speak on a topic that complements this conversation of being comfortable, stepping outside your comfort zone. Definitely want to make sure that you reach out to me. You can scan that QR code just to find out more details about my work, what I do, how to connect with me. And if you want to connect with me and just stay close outside of following or scanning that QR code, you can connect with me on LinkedIn under Danavan Hilton, as well as Hilton Elite Marketing Agency. I do have a podcast on there, LDH Podcast, L as in Libra, D as in Donovan, H as in Hilton, or L as in Lord. That's the point of it, LDH, Lord Donovan Hilton, on LDH Podcast. You can also click the link that's somewhere in there to make sure you're up to date with my latest trainings coming up, the free ones. If I'm doing any live webinars, Q&As, or if I have any paid trainings, pre-recorded or in person or virtual that I have going on, there should be a link in there for you to click to stay up to date. Make sure you're connecting with Hilton Elite Marketing Agency, my consulting firm at www.e, the letter E, the numerical number 1, connect.com, www.e1connect.com, or you can visit my services as far as advising at ldhadvising.com. That is my cue to wrap up. Thank you so much for leaving your feedback, your comments, your testimonials, your questions, your reviews, your insights. Hope that this information is going to help make the journey of pursuing what you know you can achieve or what's envisioned in your heart possible by being aware that there's going to be uncomfortable situations. Life is uncomfortable, but you can be comfortable stepping outside your comfort zone and be comfortable standing in uncomfortable situations. It's all about knowing. It's all about your mindset. It's all about growing. And I hope this presentation helped you get one step closer to achieving those goals. I'll see you in the next video.